Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode from Easy Yoga, all things relationships, yoga, and well-being. And today, my special guest is Karl Beckstrand, and he is a college media instructor, as well as a best-selling author, illustrator of 27 multicultural, multilingual books, and they include the Kirkus, I think that's how it's called, the Horn Book and School Library Journal. He was raised in San Jose, California. He has lived abroad, earned a BA in journalism and an MA in conflict resolution and a broadcast and film certificate. So welcome, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Jim. It's nice to be with you.
You too, yeah. So how did you kind of get into writing, really, and self-publishing?
Quite by accident, because as a child, I didn't like to read or write.
Wow.
Uh, but I eventually discovered books that were non-textbooks that could transport and loved them. But in college, I wanted to study something brief. I wanted to graduate quickly. So I chose journalism. Got great writing chops, but while I should have been doing homework, I was getting story ideas and scribbling them down.
That's amazing. And did you find that it's been, well, have you self-published as well as used traditional publishing? Yeah, because there's a massive difference. I self-published in 2020 and I'm now thinking about doing another book, but it's really difficult to kind of get into the traditional one. And I think because of COVID and everybody has now decided they want to write a book, that it's very then difficult to get into the traditional side of it as well.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to each. I worked with a couple of publishers early on, and then realized that they have their own interests, and that I could actually I'd learned enough to start my own company, and found that it's better to control the money and the marketing and the content.
Yeah, that's true, definitely. And what's your kind of book audience?
So most of my early books were children's picture books. But I also have a Western novel that won an International Book Award. I have short stories, and I have self-help.
That's amazing. What kind of the self-help books are there?
Barely entered that niche, that genre last year.
Oh, wow.
One book published under two titles. They're similar titles. One is More Than Two Paths. The other is Abundant Paths, Beyond Either Or, Thinking to Your Most Fulfilling Same-Sex Life.
Oh, wow. That's really good. And what do they go into as such?
So this is a book that I didn't really plan on writing. It comes from my own experience. And as I was sharing all the things I was learning with a friend, he said, "You've got to publish this, because so many of these ideas I've never heard before."
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so it came about because of dissatisfying relationships, basically. I was exposed to sex by a male peer when I was very young, and was out of control sexually for many years.
Yeah.
Then went through a period where I was almost a hermit, and I got the impression that God was like, "No, don't do that either." Both of those extremes are not good. Or basically, he was saying, get out and find healthful relationships with men and women, relate in healthful ways. And so this book is what I've learned on that journey, discovering how to do that.
Wow. Wow, that sounds amazing. And I think certainly a lot of people will need that book, and it's certainly something that isn't really spoken about. Not really anyway. So yeah, that's really good that you've kind of done that.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work.
Yes. But like, what do you believe in relationships can be good in a way, I suppose, like from the path of your book?
Sure. So I spent the early part of my life trying to find deep connection. I think that was my priority, but I wasn't really conscious of that aspect of it, that I want a deep, lasting connection. And I was going about it in sexual relationships. And I never found that deep connection, and I never found something that lasted.
Right, yeah.
So there were some really counterintuitive things that I learned in the last 5 years of my life, just recently. And that was when I took sex off the table in my relating, I almost immediately encountered deep connection.
Wow,
And the other surprising thing about it was it lasted.
that's amazing.
And it seemed like so simple. And I, all those years before,
Yeah.
wanting that and not ever finding it. And then something so simple as taking sex off the table. At least as far as my relationships with men, with people of my own sex,
Yeah.
find that my connections are so profound
Yeah.
and so lasting now that sex isn't an option.
That's amazing. That's really, yeah, that's amazing.
And yet there's still intimacy and there's still all all the, well, I distinguish between excuse me, sexual euphoria and euphoria.
Yeah.
A lot of us confuse sexual euphoria with love. And because euphoria is temporary, you're almost guaranteeing that the relationship or the love is going to go. It's going
Yes.
to end.
Yeah.
And so, and people will say, well, that's quite a sacrifice to give that up. And then I say, no, there's still euphoria in deep connecting.
Yeah.
There's still euphoria in a lasting, profound relationship, but it's not the fleeting euphoria that sexual euphoria is.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is such a difference as well because everybody thinks that, yeah, you kind of get euphoria from, um, what's the word? Just being connected together.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a different type of communication.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And is it depends on, I suppose, your religion and things like that as to how you would interpret that as well. Because I know some religions don't do that, others do. And it really depends on where you are with your religion in that specific time.
So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but obviously I was not living like the average Mormon
Yeah.
when I was young. So
Yeah.
for me, discovering these things, it was almost independent of my faith. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that is really the best way we learn things is through our own experiences. Um, and it was just so interesting to discover that, oh yeah, my faith did have this right, but to know it for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing that was fascinating was I don't battle my libido like I used to. Um, I found that my libido is my friend. It's an indicator. And if I will look at it as an indicator of how well I'm meeting my social needs, my
Yeah.
emotional needs, then it's very calm. So um, that was a huge epiphany for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That definitely is. And I think that kind of comes back to there was an episode on the podcast and I can't remember what it was, what number it was. But I had a guy on that he had said that he had erectile dysfunction and
Hmm.
that was due to stress and things like that. But he had then said, like, sex isn't, you don't need it, and you don't need it to feel euphoria, and that you can do this via meditation and the universe or God or anything like that. You can find that within yourself. And it was really interesting what he was saying, and the same with you as well. You don't need to actually have physical sex to, yeah, find this.
Yeah,
And
in
then
fact, my
especially with,
connections are
yeah,
more,
within the church. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, my connections are more profound than when it was with sex.
yeah, yeah. And I think as well, the more you kind of take it out, the more you can then explore each other and, yeah, finding other ways to connect because it goes back to that communication again.
Yeah, and for me, just having the depth of connection that I have now and have it not go away, because that was
Yeah.
the routine when I was young. It was fleeting, and
Yeah.
it's lasting, ongoing
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah. And do you feel that the church is different to LGBTQIA or it's okay?
It's the church has changed a lot. I mean, I've sat in church meetings with a man's arm around me for 2 hours.
Oh, that's lovely.
People came up afterward and said, "We're so glad you're here. Please come again."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's wonderful things happening, and that's another reason why I wrote the book is that to convey that God loves gays, God loves all of us, and there are so many options. So often we get caught up in binary thinking. There's either or,
Yeah.
and there's so many more options for living and enjoying life.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't matter who you are, it's the person inside of you rather than what is on the outside in a way. Yeah. That's amazing. I'm so pleased. That's really, really good. And with the kind of like your free choices or your individual choices, is it that we have kind of come away from the natural environment as such, or not really? It's just trying to find it again within society that tells you no or yes or all of this stuff.
That's a good question. I found that my personal opinion is that our society is over-focused on sex because we're ignorant of the other kinds of relationships that are out there. And there are
Yeah.
multiple kinds of relationships and ways of relating. And we often just think, friend or sexual partner. And
Yep.
there's so many different relationships and so many ways to relate. And if we would search out those other ways to meet our emotional needs, we would not be as compulsive or obsessive
Yeah.
as we are in general as a society.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as well, just by being yourself, you can then learn so much about yourself, but then you learn about others as well. And in a non-sexual way, or again, exploring other people's other bodies and their needs and also their soul as well, where they are needing that love and attention and yeah, and getting rid of all of like the toxicness that maybe has come from their past.
Sure.
Yeah, it really is. And do you find that it's you're attracted to different people as such and not
Yes.
just like male female?
Yes, and I have always been attracted to both men and women, but the wonderful thing about expanding my mind from binary thinking is beyond binary thinking is that I find that I can find enrichment from anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody has something to offer. Everybody, we can learn from each other, no matter who we are. And my life is just more rich.
Yeah.
In,
Oh, that's so nice. It's really, really nice. And also with the like emotional connection, I suppose it is needed for you, for not you, but it is needed for people and your people around you because we are all human and we all kind of need this connection. That's what we're mammals. We do need this connection. Whereas like in a couple of years ago, we were all out and with COVID and nobody could see each other, no one could hug each other, and I think as a human race we need that connection, but it kind of got lost and now we're trying to find it again.
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
really difficult. But is with the sexual euphoria, it's not to satisfy you as such, it's a true need that you need, but you can find it in other ways.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that all sex is bad, or
No.
I'm just saying that I think we overfocus on sex for lack of understanding of the other kinds of relating,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that sex can't meet emotional needs. And when we try to fill emotional needs with sex, we're always going to be yearning for more.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That is true, I think, definitely. With a lot of people that have had trust issues in the past or just infidelity, it kind of makes it even worse. So by finding something else that isn't sex, then you can then find that in another person.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. And if I was to write a autobiography or a biography, what would you say do? Because you think yourself that you're not that interesting, and why would people read a book about me? But actually, is it how you write it, or how is it that you just write it from your personality?
So an autobiography, I think everybody has a story. I don't know if you've heard the phrase "make a message from your mess."
Yes, I love that. Yes, it's true.
Yeah, and so I think every person has gone through something that has taught them a valuable lesson.
Yeah,
So yeah, everybody has a story in them to share.
yeah. Just go for it. I suppose if you did want to, then yeah, do it. They
Yeah.
always have. And what are two takeaway points from today's conversation?
Okay. Um, well, for publishing, I guess the fact that I continue to market my early books. So if you're a writer, keep marketing your books as if they're brand new.
Yeah.
And then for relationships, I would say um, there are many ways to meet emotional needs. And I think we feel most fulfilled when we meet those emotional needs.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Love that. Definitely. And where can we find you? What's your website or your social media channels?
So my website is premiobooks.com. It's PREMIO books.com. And then you can just Google me or find me on Amazon or Walmart or Target.
Oh, thank you. It's been really good to chat to you. Thank you so much.
Happy to be with you, Gemma.